Hey there, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful solstice, Hanukkah, Christmas, and all of the things. Really excited to be staring down the barrel of a new year, and no doubt many of you are as well. The astrological landscape of 2025 is nothing short of historical. It's a completely different experience for all of us. I've done a online webinar which you can access via my website. I'll put a link in the description below where I go deeper into all of the details of the year. There's also horoscopes for all of the signs where I track the outer planetary movements. So you can check that out too. This video, however, I want to hone in a little bit on the nodes of the moon. The north and south node change signs in January. And because there is just so much focus on the Mars retrograde, the outer planetary transits of 2025, I almost think that these nodes have become a little bit forgotten about. And so I do want to discuss those a little bit now. So on January 11, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, January 12, if you are here in Australia, the nodes move from Aries, Libra, where they've been from since July of 2023, into Virgo and Pisces. So the North node will be in Pisces and the South node will be in Virgo. So the last time we had this nodal sign activations was around 2016, 15, 16, in the reverse order. So before we even get into some of the nitty-gritty of what this might mean, you might want to think about those years and what house axis was churned up, activated, and changed during those years. So there's going to be a repetition of theme with that. So let's have a look. I've got plenty of notes here of what we can experience. Well, just to give you an idea, obviously there'll be more videos to come, but to give you an idea of what we can expect, just as a general outlook of this nodal sign placement. What I find especially curious is after having so long Neptune in Pisces since initially 2011, obviously the Saturn in Pisces since 2023, as those planets exit or start to make their exit this year, we get a reactivation of that zodiacal energy through the North Node. And so without the confusion or discombobulation or the overwhelm of Neptune, and without the restriction, the fear, the limitations, and the structure of Saturn, we get that opening of the North Node. There's many ways to look at the North Node, and I've dabbled in all of the traditions, and I've kind of got a blend of all of these different philosophies and ideas in the way that I approach the nodes and work with the nodes. But as a general rule, the North Node does tend to show us an area of life, whether it's our natal disposition or a transiting influence. The transiting influence will give us a period of time where we can experience the North Node in a particular area of life, where you might feel that you're more ambitious, you might feel more hungry, you may really feel that you need to push forward more in a particular direction. And especially if you don't have any planets or angles in Pisces, this could be really new energy for you. So you might also want to think about some of the what you've learned, what you've experienced, maybe some of the hard work and the toil of Saturn being in Pisces, and how that may have prepped you for this nodal cycle. In Pisces, we can expect that there's going to be more trust and more openness in a particular higher power, whatever that means for you. It can really help you overcome any of those Saturnian fears, the blocks, or the limits that you've been experiencing in your Pisces area of life. What I do enjoy about the North Node being in Pisces is the opportunity to trust in positive outcomes, to have clarity over logic. And yes, we might not see Pisces as being a sign that's particularly associated with clarity or clear vision, if you like. But it is a sign that is about trust. It's about compassion. It's about being okay with the not knowing. And so that's what I mean about the idea of clarity over logic. It may be more about trusting over logic or believing over your doubts. And the Pisces North Node is going to really help you go with the flow of changes, to be open with changes and be okay where that tide takes you and may even encourage you to pivot somewhat. So, one of the there is so many reasons, but one of the reasons that the nodes can be so completely fascinating is that they're the only points in the sky that constantly are in opposition to each other. So wherever the north node goes, of course, the south node will follow. And so what we need to figure out is, okay, well, where is the south node? Where is Virgo in our life going to be? And so this is going to help us. So South Node in general is about release. It's about letting go. It's about being okay that while there may be a short-term loss in a particular area of life, and of course, none of us like to hear that. But what the South Node can be really helpful in doing is helping us realign with the sense of purpose, something that's more valuable and meaningful. The South Node can actually be a lot more, or tends to be in nearly all of the traditions, a lot more spiritual than the North Node. So we do have this little bit of a contraindication or a challenge in a sense with the North Node in Pisces being known for more of a spiritual being more of a spiritual sign, whereas Virgo being a lot more analytical, critical, more prone to stress and worry and being in its head a lot. So the South Node is going to be very helpful for us to really reduce anything that's really in our head, over critical thinking, over analysis, that classic paralysis analysis that's so synonymous with the sign of Virgo. So, if there's an area of worry or concern in respect to your Virgo house, we sort of need to let go and let God, as they say. The South Node can help us really get in touch that even though there may be some loss, usually there's a loss that comes with the upgrade. And that's a real universal spiritual truth that when it appears that we have loss, when it appears that we are uh, stumbling on hard days, it's usually part of the test. It's part of the leveling up process that can happen, as the South Node makes its moves. So what will happen in some respects is that the South Node can really rearrange conditions, change situations that aren't for your highest good, aren't for that sort of Pisces ideal. One of the ideas I like to think about when we're looking at the nodes is the idea of agitation. There's a lot of mythology in the Indian tradition about the agitation and the churning of oceans. But a more simplistic way to think about that is your old-fashioned top-loading washing machine. I think they still make them, but washing machines used to have this agitator in the center. So the agitator would spin the water in one direction and then it would change and then spin them in the other. So this is what we can expect with our Pisces Virgo houses over the next 18 months, that washing machine cycle, the agitator is going to turn, churn, and change. This can feel a little bit daunting on the outset, but what I find working with clients is when eclipses happen in a sign axis, so we're talking houses, so it might be ninth and third, 10th and fourth, 12th and 6th, that areas of life can really speed up in that department. So I'll often say, you might have a 3 to 5 year goal or a plan or a bit of a vision in a particular area of life. It's like, 12 months, 2 years tops. So that tends to be how the nodes work. They really can speed up real life events. So, um, when we look into our Pisces house, we want to really think about the idea of being pulled. The universe is pulling us, it's calling us. There might be a yearning, or there might be a deep desire within that isn't really able to be articulated or explained. It's hard to understand it in that Virgo way. You might just feel that call to go in a particular direction that may not be a usual thing that you do. So we might start to see spirituality, religions, psychology. Sex can even be a real source of fascination when the North Node is activated in Pisces. Pisces wants to connect, it wants to bind, it wants to unify. What you choose to bind yourself to or with is going to be dependent somewhat on the house topics, and of course, a lot of your own chart factors as well. Because Pisces uh, and the North Node, it's going to amplify being in a heightened state of consciousness in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, there's some really beneficial ways to go on that path, and there are some ways that are not quite as ideal. One thing I think that's going to be really important as these nodes move through these pair of signs is to not let your substance of choice, quote unquote, whether it's spirituality and religion or your next ayahuasca trip, whatever it is, don't let that be your crutch. Don't let that be your pitfall to rely on whatever that thing is. One thing that I'm really looking forward to, the idea of Pisces being emphasized in an eclipse way, which is very different to Saturn being in Pisces, which is also a little bit different to Neptune being in Pisces. The amplification of the Pisces themes can help us remember that we are human beings and not human doings. So this is going to help us go with the flow a little bit more, be a little bit less outcome oriented, to understand that life is a journey, life is an experience, and coming back to some of those ideas, appreciating the beauty of what is rather than what we think in our minds should be. So that's going to be, one thing that I know I personally will be bringing into this cycle. Boundaries are also going to be important to try and work with. And of course, Saturn will leave Pisces for a period of time, March to September, October, from the top of my head. So we will get a break from Saturn in Pisces for the bulk, for a good part of 2025. So as Saturn leaves Pisces, Saturn has no Pisces has no boundaries. So while Saturn is still in Pisces, and it will be till, is it May to September? So I've drawn a blank on that because I'm talking about Pisces. It's hard to stay with the details. But there will be a time in 2025 where Saturn has exited Pisces. So you'll get to see, have the boundaries you've been trying to work with, were they enough? Did they work? Now, when people hear boundaries, we often just default to the idea of a wall, a block, not letting someone or something in. But really, what it is, it's about clarity. It's a clarity of communication, a clarity of your expectations, your desires, and just being honest about that. It's still being vulnerable and permeable, but knowing where that limit is and being clear about what that limit is. So boundaries, I haven't really thought about it too much, but I think we need to redefine or find a new word, because it's not just about building a wall or building a block or, no one's going to pass this point. It's about, yeah, let's pass the point, but doing it in a way that's very clear and very perhaps heartfelt and vulnerable. Vulnerable has strength. It's not this wet fish energy. Of course, we're going to see a lot of issues collectively around this, cleanliness versus looseness, hygiene, tightness and slipperiness, this merging, but then this idea of not merging. Do we just kind of open up the floodgates or do we keep them closed? Um, do we have compassion for everyone and everything, or do we have our faculties of discernment? And these are going to be areas that we'll probably see over the next 18 months: health, hygiene, issues around germs. That sort of stuff with the South Node. We had that a little bit in 2020 with the hand sanitizer craziness. So we might start to see some of that come back. I think with the North Node in Pisces, we're going to see a lot of mental health stuff come through, but more of a healing, a more of a not totalitarian, not in that way, but more of a total, a wholesome, a very open approach to spirituality being linked with mental health. So not just, hey, pop a pill and feel better. It will be, okay, well, what is the pain within the soul that needs some healing, that needs some assistance, and needs some help? So I think we'll get the more um, fullness of the experience that usually mental health stuff is a spiritual situation or a yearning for the soul to experience something else. So I think we'll find that a lot of the progress that's been made in recent years around things to do with various forms of medications that treat or what might be classed as drugs, um, uh, treating post-traumatic stress disorder or various things of that nature. So I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that, and it will probably come through very, very quickly. So I could talk about the nodes for ages. If you've got some really specific questions about the nodes, do feel free to leave them in the comments. If you are a slightly more advanced astrologer, beyond just chewing up YouTube videos, I also have a webinar on planets conjoin the nodes in the natal birth chart. So if you have a planet in Virgo or Pisces in your birth chart, you're going to be receiving a nodal transit and, of course, eclipses. So you might be more curious about what this cycle is going to mean for you. And there's a webinar all about that where I'll put the link below. Of course, this is a great time of year if you would like to join the Golden Circle Club, which is my astrology membership, where we go into deep dives, deep explanations. I share so much of my 20 years of experience in astrology with members there. So it's really great to just guide your life by the stars and get a heads up on all the movements of the planets every single month. And it's also going to help if you are an astrology student, you're trying to get into professional practice, to gain deeper interpretations on what the transits mean, what aspects mean, and all of the moving sky every month throughout 2025. The link is always in the show notes for that. It's my special place to be. We have monthly new moon calls, chats. It's its own little community. So I'd love to see you in there. And this will probably be my last video here on YouTube in 2024. If you're a new subscriber, thank you so much. If you've been here for a long time, well, thank you to you as well. If you enjoyed this video, got some value out of it, please do share, subscribe if you haven't already, and look forward to seeing you in 2025.